Till now the science guy.
Jill plus 2, Bill and Phil.
Till now the science guy.
Chemistry rules.
Till now the science guy.
Naming multivalent ionic compounds.
Jill now, the science gal.
Jill plus 2, Bill and Phil.
Till now the science guy.
Compounds are formed when two or more elements from the periodic table are bonded together. Multivalent ionic compounds are formed when one of those elements is a transition metal.
For example, we have iron and chlorine, and together they make iron 2 chloride. What does this mean exactly? How do we get this name? Throughout this episode, we will explain everything you need to know about multivalent ionic compounds. Let's go check it out. These are my sisters, Mill, Till, and Phil. Before we begin talking about naming multivalent ionic compounds, we need to clarify some basic information. What you got, Mill?
All metals are positively charged, which makes them cations. The opposite of cations are anions, which are negatively charged. In a chemical formula, since cations are positively charged, they will always come before anions.
Thanks, Mill. What about you, Till?
Transition metals can have multiple possible positive charges, while nonmetals can only have one possible negative charge.
Thanks, Till. But where's Phil?
In order for an ionic compound to stay neutral, the charge of the cation needs to equal the charge of an anion. This means that the positive charge needs to equal the negative charge.
Now we can focus on naming multivalent ionic compounds. For example, we have the compound FeCl2. The first step to naming this compound is to identify the elements. We know that one atom of chlorine has a charge of -1, which means the total charge of the anions is -2. Iron has multiple possible positive charges, +2 and +3. Since there is one atom of iron, the iron with a +2 charge would balance the compound and make it neutral. So we know that the iron atom in this compound has a charge of +2.
Hey Jill, why wouldn't we use the iron with a +3 charge to balance it out?
Well, if you have a +3 and a -2, then the sum of that is equal to 1, which makes it positive charge, making it not neutral. Duh.
Well, now that we know that the compound has one iron atom with a +2 charge and two chlorine atoms, each with a -1 charge,
How do we write it?
The compound is called iron chloride, but we are missing a very important piece of the name. We have to specify the charge of the iron element, which is 2. We show the charge by using a Roman numeral in parentheses. This is read as iron 2 chloride. We know that the iron comes first in the compound because the cation always comes before the anion.
How do we find the formula if we just have the name? Let's use these.
Well, these two elements are chromium and sulfur, which make up the compound called chromium 3 sulfide. We know that chromium has a +3 charge because of the Roman numeral, and sulfide has a -2 charge because it only has one possible negative charge. Now, these two charges do not equal each other to make a neutral compound. So, we have to find the lowest common multiple to make them equal to each other. In this case, that is 6. In order to equal a +6 charge, we need 2 atoms of chromium, because 3 times 2 is 6. And in order to have a -6 charge, we need 3 atoms of sulfur. So, -2 times 3 is -6. So the chemical formula of this compound is Cr2s3.
let's go over a trick that can help simplify the process of figuring out the atomic formula when given the name. This rule is called the crossover rule. You can take the charges of each atom and switch them to become the subscript of the opposite atom. So you would take chromium, you bring the 2 down from sulfide, and then you would have sulfur, and you bring the 3 down from chromium. This makes the atom neutral and basically just does the same thing we just went over with finding the lowest common multiple. You can think of it as cross multiplication without worrying about the signs.
Oh. Thanks. Moving on to the last topic of today, multivalent ionic compounds with polyatomic ions. Polyatomic ions are molecules that act as a single unit with a single charge. When a multivalent ionic compound has a polyatomic ion in it, the polyatomic ion follows the same rules as a nonmetal does in a normal multivalent ionic compound.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. See you around the universe.
Woo! Wait, did you go? We now know that one atom of
start over.
So when they ask, like, what's the probability of the
Well, Till, the compound is called iron chloride, but we are missing a very important piece of it.
Well, now that we know that, one more time, I got it, I'm good, it's fine.